So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Anthesis Making Tax Digital Information webinar. I'm Callum McRae, Account Manager for Anthesis. For your information, this afternoon's session is being recorded for playback and passing on to other colleagues at a later date. Can I remind all delegates that during the presentation, if you can keep your line on mute for me, please. And if you're in a conference room using a speaker, please also make sure that remains on mute all the time. There will be an opportunity during at the end of the presentation to ask questions of Maggie directly. If you would like to flag your interest in a question, you can put a question mark in the chat area of the Microsoft Teams screen, and I will prioritise your question later. In the meantime, I'd like to pass you over to my colleague, Maggie Hogg, who will take you through this afternoon's information session. Over to you, Maggie.
Okay, so can everyone hear me okay? Except you're all on mute, so you can't tell me. I'm assuming you can. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. We're just going to go through a little bit of background of making tax digital, which I'm sure you all know about. How M3 and Infor have decided that they are going to package their solution and then go on to the bridging software that Anthesis have developed to enable you all who are not on the highest version of M3 to still be able to make your tax digital. So if we go right in, let's have a little bit of background. That didn't work very well. Here we go. So HMRC has got an ambition to become one of the most digitally advanced tax administrations in the world. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not going to say anything about it. They're going to start with making tax digital for VAT, and the making tax digital rules will apply for everyone, basically, there's a few exceptions, from the first VAT period, which will start on or after the 1st of April 2019. So basically, that's just about now for very many people. They say that businesses are required to keep records in digital form and file their VAT returns using software. They provide all the APIs and everything. They just say that you have to use the APIs to send them any information, and they send information back through these APIs as well. So each piece of software must be digitally linked to other pieces of software to create the digital journey. The Inland Revenue recognise that you are not going to have one bit of software that you can use to create a VAT return. So they do appreciate that people use spreadsheets, they use different pieces of software, they have to bring it all together to make their VAT return. They, however, do not consider the use of cut and paste or copy and paste to move information around to be a digital link. So if you're currently calculating your VAT return using spreadsheets, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are manipulating things in that spreadsheet and cutting and pasting things around, they won't be happy with that. They have, however, said, and they used the capital goods scheme as an example, that there will be times when you have to go and make calculations and then put the result of those calculations into your VAT return. And while they have recognised this, they haven't made it exactly clear what they are going to accept. It sounds to me like you can do some manual work in a spreadsheet, and as long as you then automatically bring that into the VAT return spreadsheet, they consider that to be digital. But that's a kind of watch your space, and I'm not even sure HMRC exactly know what they're going to accept at this moment in time. Okay, so where are we with M3? M3 and Infor have a solution where we create our VAT returns in TXS 100 using a template in the background. And from that, you can send it off via MEC and it will create an XML file. If you're working on a super duper new version of M3, you're probably not on this call, but it will then go through locally and will speak to Inland Revenue. So you don't actually need any bridging software. The fact that you're on this call suggests that you do need some bridging software. However, we have checked with Infor and tested that the upgrades, if you like, that they have offered to create this VAT return and create the XML can still be applied to many versions of M3 without you actually having to use the locally connection to HMRC. So all is not lost, as long as you're basically on version 10 onwards and have the ability to pick up the financial business message, then you can still use a TXS 100 VAT return. However, you're probably all aware that there are limitations with any software that you use, and you can't always get your square peg into the round hole that they have provided for you. So very often people will take information out. They may use TXS 100, but they will still have to make certain adjustments or do certain things with it to check their calculations and prove that it's all right. And you end up with a spreadsheet. Not a problem, because the software, the bridging software that we have created will pick up the information from a spreadsheet if that's the way you wish to go. You do have to obviously bear in mind that all your links on the spreadsheet and all the information going into the spreadsheet has to get there digitally. And then we will have users who are on versions prior to when TXS 100 was created and the option to create electronic returns. You are probably using a spreadsheet at the moment. You will use a suite of downloads and bring them all together within the spreadsheets. Still fine, not a problem. As long as your spreadsheet has got your digital links in it, you can still use this bridging software to report to the HMRC. And I should mention probably at the same time that if you are using other software packages, God forbid that you don't have everything on M3, it will pick up any spreadsheet. It's not going to be precious if you haven't produced it from M3, but you didn't hear that from me, obviously. Okay, so where do we start? We have created our software solution, and it is basically registered with HMRC as being a possible software that you can use to bridge between your VAT return that you've created in HMRC. HMRC don't recommend any software. They just give you a list of people who have registered software with them. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
I'm hoping
Yeah, Maggie,
you
you're
can all
good to
still
go.
hear me.
You're okay,
I'm
Maggie, carry on.
Yeah, okay, then carry on. Right, no worries. So I don't know what the exact wording is, but basically we have tested this with the inland revenue, and the inland revenue have come back and said it does what it says, and it does what we are happy with. So we can now sort of say that this is going to be okay to use for your tax returns. So we'll go straight into a demonstration. This is what our software looks like. That's just the first page. I'm going to have to drag something over to start with. Right, you should be able to see the gov.uk website now.
Can indeed, carry on.
Great, so I'm going to create a test user, an organisation, and show you how to set these things up. It's going to give me all this information about a person that doesn't exist. So this is where people can steal your ID. It's going to give me a VAT registration number right down here. And it's going to give me a way to log in. So I'm going to put my new VAT registration number in here. I'm going to put my name, which is obviously not my name, in here. Just going to save that for the minute. So now we now have a new Claude Elson. If I get authorization code, it takes me to HMRC. HMRC are going to ask me if this is appropriate eventually. This is interesting because it's usually really quick. I'm going to close that and try again because it's usually really quick, and it wasn't that time. Get authorization code. Here we go. So it's asking me, as the owner of this VAT registration number, if I want to have authority to interact with HMRC. I'm going to say yes. I'm saying yes. And then it's going to ask me to sign in. Obviously, the Inland Revenue are having a bit of a bad Friday here. I'm going to use the user ID and password that I was given, but this is just your normal gateway password that you use to report. I'm going to sign in, and it's going to give me a code. Grant authority. And I'm going to copy that code up to here. And then close that window. And Claude is now authorized to speak to the Inland Revenue. I'm going to put him on as a default, or her, I suppose. And then we're going to go and do a VAT return. So we'll go to Submit VAT Return. Here we are. We're going to choose Claude. And we are going to assume that we've gone into M3, we've run TXS 100, we've created the electronic message and sent it through MEC, and we've got an XML file. So we're going to go and find our XML file. Here's one I did earlier. Open it, and you'll see I've got loads of information come up here. We will only have the option of 2 periods because we're in the test company. So we'll say OK. Tick the declaration that we always have to say anyway. We even had to say it then when we did it in paper. When I submit, it's going to tell me whether it's worked or not. So submit. Processing date, payment from bundle, and that was successful. So that tells me I have submitted my VAT return, which is a good thing. If I go back and look at View VAT Return and look for Claude, okay, we can see if we look at this one, oh, it's not doing it, come on, where, load obligations. There's the numbers that we've just submitted. And there should be no numbers on here, no numbers on the next one because we haven't submitted it. So basically, you can go back and look at your old VAT returns. Now, let's say, for example, you do this on a spreadsheet. In order to pick up the numbers from a spreadsheet, and again, here's one I did earlier. I've done all my calculations on sheet 1, and I've got a summary on sheet 2 on the summary sheet, and I'm going to use boxes C2 to C10. So that's the only 2 bits of information I actually need. If I go back here to settings, on the settings page, I say the name of the panel on the spreadsheet that I want to use and where I'm going to pick my 9 VAT return boxes from. So I'm going to have C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7. Obviously, these don't have to be consecutive. They can be in, well, they'll have to be on the same sheet. But other than that, it's however you have configured your spreadsheet. We'll save that and go back and do our next VAT return for Claude. We want to do it for the next period. We say OK. I want those numbers to disappear, and they're not disappearing at the moment. So I'll get back to you on that one. Let me just make a note. Numbers not appearing. So this time I'm going to load from a spreadsheet. Now, I don't need to tell it whether it's a spreadsheet or an XML document. It's going to know just by the file that I've picked up. So I'm going to say open here. And here we've got a completely different set of numbers. The numbers are complete rubbish, by the way. It's just to show you that it pulls numbers in. Tick the box, submit, and that one will go. Successful. Now, I just wanted to show you that if you wanted to try and resubmit one, let's try and do the first one again, and try and submit. It won't let me. It knows that I've already submitted that one, and it's going to say, no, I'm sorry, you've already done this one, you can't do another one. So there are controls in there to let you know. The other things you can see here, although to be honest, they look a bit rubbish because they are from the test company, is the VAT liabilities, and it's whatever test user you pick up from HMRC, this is exactly the same, and it doesn't update, it's just exactly. And the same goes for VAT payments. It just gives you the same information for every test user. So that's basically it. Once you've created your VAT return, you come into this software, you bring the information into this software, and this will bridge to HMRC and make the reporting that you need to do under Making Tax Digital. So over to you, Callum, for any questions, I think.
Thanks very much, Maggie, for taking us through that and for guiding us through it. As is always the case, these things never work smoothly and perfectly as they're meant to do. I'd like to open this up for questions, though. If anybody has anything they'd like to raise at the moment, please either let me know by putting a message in the chat window or by briefly opening your line and saying question.
Hi, Callum.
Hi there. Who's that calling?
Colin Mosley at Polyflow.
Hi, Colin. Welcome. What would you like to know?
Well, first of all, the mapping work from M3 into MEC, that side of it first, is that something that Anthesis can do for us also?
Indeed. Yes, we can. That's something that we can address for you.
Right. Okay. And then the next question, which I'm sure everybody's wanting to know, is how this is priced, etc.
Currently, and obviously we know this is a question we were going to be asked, I will tell you all collectively that we're working on a subscription-based model for Making Tax Digital. Details of that will be sent out to each person that's on the call at the moment with details of that after the conference. There are other factors that we must point out will possibly affect the amount of time that is spent in implementing Making Tax Digital for any organisation, depending on the version of M3 that you're using. So it may not be the same for every company going forward. However, we will be sending out details of the subscription-based models shortly afterwards. Any other questions relating to the product at the moment or the presentation?
Sorry, yes, it's Colin again. Just going back to the MEC side of things. Yep. When you send the email with the subscription pricing, are you also able to give a sort of a budgetary guide onto the amount of work that would be required for the MEC? Hours,
I can take that on board for you separately, Colin. I'll have a look at that. All if anybody else wishes more detail specifically on that, please drop me a line and we can tailor these specifically for customers going forward.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions relating to what you've seen today, ladies and gents?
I would like to just add that you can view this as something of a journey. Inland Revenue.
Now exiting.
Inland Revenue have said that they will have a soft landing period of a year. So you have basically a year to make sure that all your digital links are in place, and if you wish to use MEC, that MEC is in place. It's not something you have to make sure you've got it working for the first VAT return. There is an option here to make your first VAT return, your second VAT return using your spreadsheet as you are at the moment, as long as you're working towards digital links. The Inland Revenue is happy with that.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. If there are no further questions coming from attendees, I'd like to thank you for attending this afternoon's information session. Full details of the recording of this will be sent out also, so you can access that again to review either yourselves or with colleagues. And we will obviously be following up with you all individually for feedback and commenting on what you saw this afternoon. Thank you very much for attending. We look forward to talking to you all again very, very soon. Thank you very much.